Today I'm going to be reviewing Stonehenge paper and doing a demonstration of this bee and colored pencil. Hi, I'm Lisa, the artist behind Lachri Fine Art. After the flop that was Strathmore's colored pencil paper, I was a little bit hesitant to try something new. I normally work on Fabriano Artistico Extra White Hot Press 140-pound watercolor paper. That name is too long. That paper works beautifully for colored pencil. But so many artists are always raving about Stonehenge that I wanted to give it a try. So I ordered this pad of Stonehenge paper. When I posted on Facebook about having made this purchase, an artist friend of mine, Haley Romero, who does beautiful graphite drawings, you can check out her Facebook page, links below in the video description. Anyway, Haley told me that this is not the same as this type of Stonehenge that everyone likes so much, the individual sheets that you purchase. This pad of paper has a vellum finish, so it's a bit smoother than the other stuff. She actually sent me some samples to try out of the individual sheets, and she was right, definitely a big difference between the two. So just to be clear, the review that I'm doing today is not on the padded paper that you can buy. As convenient as that sounds, it is different than the individual sheets. You can buy these in very large sheets that you just cut down to the size that you want. Those are available from dickblick.com and Jerry's Artorama, a few other places too, but those are the main places I've seen them at. This paper is 90 pounds, which is a bit lighter weight than what I typically like for colored pencil, but it didn't feel very flimsy, so I was really happy about that. I wanted to test out all of the techniques that I regularly use in colored pencil. One is an airbrush background. The next is masking fluid. After that, I wanted to try out blending with paint thinner and blending by burnishing. So I started off by taping my edges down as usual. I applied masking tape over the bee and the flowers, blocked all that off that I didn't want airbrush on, and I went ahead and airbrushed the background. The reason that I tape everything down is that way if the paper warps or buckles a little bit while wet, which most paper will do, it will dry back flat into shape. And this paper, as expected, unlike the colored pencil paper by Strathmore, the Stonehenge did dry back flat into shape, which was great. I also want to say this one got bent a little bit in shipping, but when I applied a little bit of water in the hairdryer, it completely went back into its original shape, so that's nice. So if you do accidentally bend your paper, you can fix this stuff, just so you guys are aware. The masking fluid normally warps the paper a little bit, and I just add a little bit of water and then take a hairdryer to it, and then it will flatten back out into shape. The masking fluid didn't cause any warping on this paper, so that was kind of nice. The masking fluid that I'm using is by Winsor & Newton. I think I need to do a vlog showing you guys how to use masking fluid. I may do that soon. So my first test with the airbrush and the masking fluid, this paper passed with flying colors. On to the damask print. As usual, when I do this type of print, I use the stencil and the Polychromos black pencil. The reason that I use the Polychromos is it gets to a sharper point and I can get more detail in those clean edges. I actually had a hard time getting my edges clean with this. And the other thing that I noticed when working with the Polychromos, that I had a lot of the white dots of the paper showing through. It wasn't covering all the little crevices of the paper, but when I took paint thinner to it, it completely covered everything up, and that solved that problem. And as I worked on the bee and the flower in general, I did notice with the Polychromos, it didn't cover all of those crevices throughout the piece. It wasn't just with the black and the fine detail. If you are using Polychromos and you are using paint thinner, this won't be a problem for you at all because the paint thinner does push the pigment down into those little crevices. Now the wax-based pencil, the Luminance that I was using, that had no problem getting into those little crevices. So this is one of those things, it depends on how you work. The techniques that you use do make a big difference here. As I moved on to the bee and the flower, I was so happy with how nicely everything blended. The paper took the color really well. I got great color saturation and I was able to get several layers. So I really was overall very, very happy and very impressed with this paper. So if you are working in Polychromos and you don't use paint thinner to blend, this may not be the perfect paper for you, but if you are using paint thinner, it worked beautifully. I think whether or not you like it, it's just going to depend on the techniques that you're using. But I do think it's worth buying a sheet or two to see how you like it. For those of you who are supporters over on Patreon, the 2-hour version of this demonstration is available for you guys now, so make sure to head over there and check that out. So let's get on to the demonstration. Starting with the airbrushing, I have used masking fluid around the edges of the bee and then used Frisket to cover the center of the bee. The center Frisket area, Frisket is just basically a big piece of tape that is very low tack, so it's used a lot with airbrushing. For the airbrushing, I am just not putting a lot of detail here because I want this to be very blurry and out of focus. Now I can move on to the colored pencil. I'm using paint thinner to blend. That is the Mona Lisa Odorless paint thinner, and that gives me that nice soft look. I found that if I was blending by burnishing with the wax-based pencils, I got great coverage with this paper. If I was using burnishing with just the Polychromos, the oil-based pencil, I did have the little flecks of white of the paper show through, but if I used paint thinner over that, it solved that problem, so it really wasn't an issue for me. But if you're not using paint thinner, you may not love this paper for Polychromos.
Although I did speak to an artist earlier tonight who does amazing work, Wendy Lynn, I believe is her name, and she does not use paint thinner and loves this paper for Polychromos, but she's using the colored version of the Stonehenge, and she said it's a little bit different, so I will have to test that out for you guys sometime in the near future. So I am lightly layering my base color and then building up to my darker colors. After I get several layers, I blend out with the Mona Lisa Odorless paint thinner. You can see these horizontal flickering lines that are happening. I'm using the new video camera and I apparently have not figured out the best settings, although from what I'm reading it may be an issue with the type of lights that I'm using, so I'm not sure how to fix all of that. So if any of you are video gurus out there and you have some suggestions for me, definitely let me know. So I basically break up whatever I'm working on into smaller sections. So in this case, just the bee's head, blending that out with paint thinner and then going back over that with detail work on top of it. When I blend out with the paint thinner, I am letting it dry before I go back over it, but it usually dries within just a few seconds. You can see my first layers. When I first put colored pencil on, it looks like crayon. You can get rid of that crayon look by either burnishing or adding a lot of layers with your colored pencil. Burnishing is just adding a lot of pressure to your pencil in order to get the colors to blend. You have to be careful not to burnish too early on, because if you do, you will actually flatten out the tooth of the paper so it won't take additional layers. The other way you can get rid of that crayon look is using the paint thinner like I'm doing here. Anytime you see me using a paintbrush, that is with the paint thinner. Now, one thing that I found with this paper that was really interesting is that if I use the eraser, I have an ink eraser made by Faber-Castell. That is the lime green pencil thing that you see me use quite often. It lifts color off this paper so well. So if I had something in the wrong area or I just needed to lift off some of the color for different effects, this worked really, really well on this paper, more so than it does on the Fabriano. With Fabriano, I can lift off some of the color, but it doesn't erase completely. I was able to erase color almost all the way on this. So that might be an added bonus for some of you. Working onto the flowers, I am using so many colors of purples and pinks and blues to get these tones. I must have had 30 different colors out at the time while working on them. Normally I will put white down first if I know an area needs to stay really light, then I layer my other colors over it and blend out with paint thinner. I don't normally use a lot of pinks and purples in my work, so this was a really fun piece to work on. The photographer of this piece was Paul Sherman, and the photo is from paintmyphoto.com. You can definitely check that out if you want to draw this for yourself. This is available for you guys over there. Paul Sherman has so many great photos available for you guys, or for anyone really, to work from that are all royalty free, so you don't have to worry about copyright issues. Now, while I'm using pretty much the same color on every flower, the difference in how I'm able to make certain petals pop out more is just in getting the contrast. These are the same blues and purples that I used on the lighter petals. I'm just using less white here, and I'm layering the darker ones heavier. But getting that contrast is what's going to give my piece dimension and make the flowers look separate from each other. If I make all those flowers the same light color, like the one that's above what I'm working on right now, everything's going to blend into each other. So by getting those darks really dark up against the really light areas, that makes everything pop out a lot better. That's what I was talking about on the vlog last week. Your values and your contrast are so important. You can see here those little dots before I hit the paint thinner, and that's what I was saying with the Polychromos. Now, I was able to get better coverage than that. I didn't have that many white dots showing when I really tried to burnish, but that gives you an idea of the effect that I was getting with those. On those pink flowers, I actually used that I want to say periwinkle or an ultramarine blue, something like that. But I use that light blue a lot more than you would expect in order to get those purples to kind of glow. I really like layering all of my colors to get more depth that way. And I just finish up the flowers by blending out and adding detail here. You can see I used the white luminance pencil to get the detail on some of those little flower bulb fuzzy looking things. I don't know what those were, but the white really showed up nice with this paper. This paper was so great for layering, for blending. The blending was the part that I liked the most. I cannot wait to try this for a portrait to get that smooth skin tone, especially on kids. So that will be very, very fun to try out. I'll probably do that next month. So on this one, it's going to be dark, so I started out with the darker blue first, and then added the pinks on top of it. And that is about it for this guy. I definitely enjoyed working on this paper and will be using it again in the future for sure.
Thanks for watching. Again, if you're supporters over on Patreon, the 2-hour version of this video without the voiceover is available for you guys now, so make sure to head over and check that out. If you're new to my channel, I have new video critiques every Tuesday where I'm critiquing your original paintings or drawings, my own speed paintings, drawings, and tutorials every Wednesday, social media tips for artists each Thursday, and artist vlogs every weekend. So if you haven't already, I would love for you to subscribe, and you can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, Google+. All those social media sites, links are below in the video description to keep up with news, my newest work, and see real-time clips of whatever it is I'm currently working on. I'll see you guys tomorrow for the social media vlog. I do not know what it is about bees, but it brings out the puns in everyone. So I figured, why fight it? Leave your best bee puns in the comments below.